altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me.
I'm thrilled that Sophie is with us here today to talk about her experiences and to share her first book. Since she was last with us, Sophie, of course, has become Europe's first trans TV newscaster, hosted her own TV and radio chat shows, has become an experienced broadcaster, stood in the last general election, and just a few months ago, gave an excellent TEDx talk, which you can find on YouTube. And Sophie's book, Not Today, How I Chose Life, isn't just a cracking autobiography. It's a great resource for anyone struggling with their mental health or identity. Would you please help me to welcome Sophie to our podium?
Thank you, Michael. The thing is, like, I'm still up at the front, but you know what? I'm nothing special. I am nothing special. And you know what? Neither are none of you. We're all ordinary. We need to celebrate our ordinariness. We need to recognise that, you know what? It doesn't take someone special to do things. Because if we believe that people are special, then it's like a cop-out. It's like, well, I can't do that because I'm not special. And you know what? We're all capable of whatever we set our hearts to. So that's what I want to say to you. We are all ordinary. I am more ordinary than anyone else. So anyway, I suppose I better go do what I'm here for. Now that I've made him turn the camera around a couple of times. Hi everyone in internet land.
Do some noddies.
What?
Some noddies.
Yeah. When I was a TV presenter, sort of, everyone found it hilarious that so I would film an interview and then I'd have to film some noddies so that we can edit it all together. Experienced broadcaster. I've known that I was transgender since I was about 7 years old. I went on a family holiday to a holiday park in South Wales, and I remember we arrived there. We piled out of my mum and dad's Ford Anglia, which for those that are younger than me, which normally is sort of everyone in the audience, but today I'm doing all right. It was the car from Harry Potter. It was a real car, but it couldn't fly. So I think by the time we'd driven from Bournemouth all the way to South Wales, my parents were sick and tired of these two annoying children in the back of the car. I mean, being the 1970s, good parenting was a bottle of Coke and a packet of crisps. So as soon as we arrived, my parents cleared off to the bar, my brother went off to play football, and I went off to meet these other kids. And the thing is, these are kids that I'd never met before and I was never going to meet again. And I remember walking up to them and they said, "Hi, what's your name?" And I went, "Hi, I'm Jenny." And all week I was Jenny. Obviously at 7 years old I was quite cute. I'm still cute, but... But at the end of the week my parents came out of the bar and, I mean, they had fed us in the meantime, it's not like they just... But see, these kids went, "Bye Jenny," and my parents looked at me kind of funny. And I went, "Weirdos, I've been doing that all week, absolutely no idea what they're talking about." But this was 1974, and we didn't have the internet back then. We had no knowledge, we had no LGBT role models, and we certainly didn't have any trans role models. And because of that, I just felt like I was the only person in the world that had ever been through this. And due to that isolation and that sense of wrongness about who I was, the first time I tried to take my own life I was 12 years old. I joined the Air Force at the age of 16, I was third generation Air Force, and I became a jet engine technician on a Tornado squadron. And one sunny August afternoon when I was 18 years old, I was walking between a couple of the aircraft shelters and I heard a bang. I immediately went to the source of the noise and there had been an explosion on one of the aircraft. and a colleague of mine who was 19 years old had lost his arm in this explosion. I was the first person there. I put a tourniquet on it and I saved his life. Despite the fact that the Air Force had had sort of more than 100 years of dealing with people with shell shock and post-traumatic stress, they didn't have a clue what to do with me. So in fact the first thing they did was they shipped me off out to Germany. I think their idea was that they were removing me from the source of the pain, whereas actually what they were doing was taking me away from my support network. So there I was, 18 years old, stationed in Germany, still transgender because it doesn't get better on its own, post-traumatic stress, depression, self-harming, suicidal, using alcohol to try and numb the pain. And basically that was my life for the next 3 decades. Around about 2000 I realised what my gender identity meant, and I started to transition. And then my partner got pregnant, and the plan was that our child would have 2 mothers from the day they were born, which back in 2000 was unheard of, especially if one of them was trans. And on the day my son was born he had a massive seizure, and as a result of that seizure we nearly lost him, and he ended up disabled. And back then wherever I went I would get abuse walking down the street. I got abuse in my doctor's waiting room, and he just said, well, you chose to do this so you're going to have to get used to it. And I remember holding this tiny little baby in my hands and thinking, this child's life will already be difficult enough without having a trans parent added onto that. So I took Sophie and I murdered her and I buried her for 15 years. Now imagine what it's like taking something that's so intrinsically a part of who you are, your sexuality, your gender identity, your religion, any of those things that sort of make up who you are in your soul, and not just not do it, but deny that it ever existed. Every single day of the next 15 years I thought about suicide. Even on days that I thought I was doing alright, I could be driving down the road and this little voice in the back of my head would just go, yeah, but if you let go of the steering wheel, all the pain will end. Then, in January 2015, of all places to have my epiphany moment, I was in Hotel Ibis Budget in Bradford, a place where I'm sure many a weary traveller has looked out the window and thought, where did my life go wrong? Shouldn't really diss Bradford. I like Bradford. Bradford's lovely. I've got a lot of friends in Bradford. They do laugh at that in Leeds though. And this light bulb just went off, and I just thought to myself, that's why you hate yourself so much. So I went into town, bought some clothes, bought some makeup, and you know what, the pain just stopped. And I thought, is that all it took to not want to die? But of course it wasn't, because then effectively what I had to do was go home, take a hand grenade, throw it into my life and see where all the pieces landed. I told my wife, and she said, well, I knew it's going to come back. And then I had to think about telling the kids. Now, having me as a parent, my kids weren't brought up with strict gender roles. They were free to sort of discover who they were by themselves. But of course, society, media, everything else, and of course their own identities, they found their own path. And my disabled son was always obsessed with cars. He didn't speak until he was 5. His first word was car. He's now 18. He's still obsessed with cars, car books, toy cars, going to car shows, watching Top Gear, old Top Gear, old racist Top Gear. And my daughter was always interested in dance and fashion and things like that. And at the time my daughter was 11, so she knew all about the Kardashians. I still have no idea who they are or what they do or why they're famous or why Kendall Jenner's the youngest billionaire ever in the history of the planet. And my daughter started asking questions about Caitlyn Jenner. And my wife said, well, she's asking these questions, do you think it's the right time to tell her? Now, I'm one of those people that when I see an opportunity, I go for it, because you never ever know when it's going to come again. So I think within about an hour I sat down with the kids and I said to them, you know the way you always knew you were a girl and you always knew you were a boy? Well, it wasn't like that for me, and it caused me a lot of pain. And I think in the next 10 minutes my daughter went through all 5 stages of grief in about 10 minutes. So she started off with denial and anger and bargaining, and she eventually got round to acceptance. And I knew that she'd got to acceptance because she said to me, "What's in your makeup bag?" She's only just stopped asking me that question now, 4 years later, because the answer was always the same. I'm 50. It's the same 5 products that are always in there. 'Cause you find 5 products you like and you don't change them, do you? Anyway, so I came out to the kids, and at the time I was working for a football club that was pushing for promotion to the Premier League, and I thought that being trans would end my career in football. But actually, when I told the club, they were really supportive, and all the football fans were really supportive. And then it's like at that point I had a choice. I could either try and hide and just get on with my life, or I could stand up and use the fact that I worked in football to try and make a difference, which seems highly appropriate on Trans Day of Visibility today. And I thought, well, I've been given an opportunity. If I don't use this opportunity to speak out about my experiences, then what's it all worth? So I remember I started doing talks, and one of the first ones I actually did was at Wembley Stadium. And I remember I was just about to go on, and I'm looking out the window at the pitch, and I turned around to the guy from the FA and I went, if I'd known it was this easy to get invited to posh things at Wembley, I'd have come out as trans years ago. But over the last 4 years, sort of amazing things have happened to me. Michael touched on them sort of in the introduction there. I mean, I was a presenter for Latest TV. I mean, I know it's Latest TV, but I was a TV presenter. I had my own chat show. I set it in a bar. If you're ever going to have a chat show, set it in a bar. I had a radio show. And then, August 2017, Theresa May called a snap election because she knew that she could win. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go for this. Now, I put my name down for 2 constituencies. One I knew that I could win, and that was Kemp Town. And the other one was East Worthing and Shoreham. Now, as we know, Lloyd got Kemp Town, and he's doing an absolutely amazing job. And I got East Worthing and Shoreham. Now, in 2015, the Labour Party only got 9,000 votes there. So when I got selected and I walked in there, one of the first things someone said to me was, "You do realise this is Brighton? This isn't Brighton. No one's going to vote for a trans woman here." And over the next 5 weeks, the press were obsessed with it, because if I'd got elected, I would have been the first ever trans MP. But, you know what, out in the streets, people didn't actually care about my gender identity. In fact, the only time I remember it being mentioned was this guy came up to me and he said, before you were selected, I didn't have a clue who you were. But sort of, I've looked into you, I've read some of your articles, I've watched some of your speeches and that, and I sort of get the feeling that you're going to stand up for the things you believe in, no matter how difficult they are, and that's why I'm going to vote for you. And then, I mean, because the election campaign was only 5 weeks long, I remember about 4 o'clock in the morning of June the 9th being stood on the stage in Worthing Assembly Hall, and the sun was just coming up through the door at the other end of the hall, and in a constituency where 2 years earlier the Labour Party had only got 9,000 votes, and obviously no one would ever vote for a trans woman, I remember standing on the stage as the returning officer stepped up to the microphone and said, "Sophie Rose Cook, Labour Party, 20,882. In 5 weeks we'd increased the Labour vote by 114%, purely because we had someone up there that they could believe in, someone that they could see was different to the rest of the politicians. I remember being on the doorstep and someone went, "Oh, I'm not voting for you, politicians are all the same." Well, I clearly am not. But the thing is, despite all these amazing things that have happened to me, I still struggle with my mental health. I still have days when I feel suicidal. In fact, early today I was feeling suicidal. But the way I deal with it now is I came up with a philosophy to keep myself safe. And that philosophy is, I know that one day I'll kill myself because I don't know how to stop feeling this way, but it won't be today. And in the meantime, I'm going to do the best I can to enjoy every single day. And then on the day that I die, in many, many years' time, I'll look back and realise that I didn't get around to doing it. The thing is, I know that I'll never do it, because I know that suicide isn't the end of pain. All it does is take your pain and give it to someone else. And I can't do that to my kids. This is my pain to carry, not theirs. I also know that the feeling will pass, because it always does. The first time I tried to take my life, I was 12 years old. I'm now 52. And I'm still here. That's 40 years of feeling suicidal, and I'm still here because the feeling does pass. Now, by coming up with that philosophy, what it did was it allowed me to have the days when I felt suicidal without feeling guilty or shameful about it, which just compounded its ability to hurt me. Now I wake up, I feel happy, I feel sad, I feel suicidal. And you know what? I don't treat any of those days any differently. Because I have no control over when those feelings come. But I do have control over how I react to them. It's been difficult, and that's why I've got "Not Today" tattooed on my wrist, just to remind me that this isn't the day that I die. Because I know that the light always follows the darkness. And the thing is, unless we have the darkness, we will never appreciate the light. It's been an amazing journey for me. I've got to meet some wonderful people over the last 4 years. I've done things that I could never have dreamt of. I've had abuse like I could never have dreamt of as well, unfortunately. And I believe that social media can be a force for good as well as bad. But I go into a lot of businesses and they have these big folders about equality and diversity that tell them how you should treat people and how you should talk to people. And I say to them, you don't need these big folders full of rules. You just need 2 words. And if you lived your life by these 2 words, then the world would very quickly become a better place. And those 2 words are respect everyone. When I was in the Air Force, I was told that I had to respect officers because they had the Queen's Commission. Being young and stupid, I thought, no, they've got to earn my respect. Now that I'm old and stupid, everyone gets my respect automatically. They can lose it really quickly, but they get it to start with automatically. Because at the end of the day, we are all the same. I'm quite often asked about my spirituality, because I am a very spiritual person. And the thing I believe in most of all is love. Love is at the centre of everything. Love is at the centre of life. And if we don't have love in our hearts, then well, what is there in the world? Love is light. We need that love to sustain us. We need that love to build communities. We need that love to build families. When I transitioned, I thought that I was going to lose everything. I thought I was going to lose my family. I thought I was going to lose my career in football. And the thing is, at the time I didn't actually know what the price was going to be. And you know what? If I'd actually known how high a price I would pay to be me, I don't know if I'd have made that decision. But I've got my starfish, and I got my starfish. And I got a starfish. Because to me the starfish encapsulates everything that I do in my life. I just want to tell you a story about a lady. She's walking along the beach and the beach is covered in starfish. She starts picking them up and throwing them back in the sea. And this old lady comes up to her and she says, "You do realise there's miles and miles of beach and millions of starfish. You can't hope to make a difference." And she thinks. She bends down, picks up a starfish, throws it back in the sea. And she says, "I made a difference to that one." Very few of us have the chance to change the world with a single act. But we all have the chance to change the world incrementally. One day at a time, one act at a time, one starfish at a time. Before I came out, I thought I was going to lose everything. But my relationship with my two youngest kids is now stronger than ever. Because I'm happy, because I'm me, because I'm authentic. Like I say, I do still have the days when I feel suicidal, but you know what? Me on a day when I'm suicidal, I can still be cheerful because I just file it. It's not going to affect my actions that day. I can just get on with life. When I came out, people were saying to me, "You're so brave." And after a while I started to think, you know what, I don't feel brave, I just feel like me. And at that point I realised that Steve, the person I was before, was the brave one. Because he woke up every single day wishing that he was dead and managed to hold it together long enough for me to be here. And I write him a poem to say thank you. Thank you for being strong. Thank you for holding it together long enough for me to be here. And I posted this poem online because the thing is, I now have a relationship with him and a love for him that unfortunately that poor tortured soul could never have for himself. I posted this poem online and my then 11-year-old daughter, in the space of 2 sentences, summed up more eloquently than I ever could the power of being authentic, the power of being true to yourself, and the power of love. And she just wrote, "You're my hero. Steve was great, but Sophie's better." Thank you very much, everyone.